Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Season 2, Episode 7 of the Syracuse Sport Business Conference Digital Series. My name is Jack Adler, and I will be the host of today's episode. I'm thrilled to welcome on the legend himself, Ian Eagle, as our 7th guest of the season. He spent over 25 years broadcasting live sporting events from the NBA, the NFL, college basketball, the French Open, boxing, track and field, and you name it, he's probably done it. But he's probably best known as the play-by-play announcer for the NFL on CBS since 1998. He's called the last 23 NCAA tournaments on CBS, and he has also been the voice of the Brooklyn Nets since 1994. Since 2010, he's been a part of TNT's NBA playoff crew, and Ian graduated from Syracuse University in 1990 after doing play-by-play for our school's basketball, football, and lacrosse teams. So after college, he worked at the top sports radio station in the country, WFAN in New York, as well as hosting his own show on Sirius XM radio. So, goddamn, you've done it all up to this point. Ian, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. And glad
Jack, you got it. I'm lucky number seven. Number 7, that's always been a good number. So appreciate the kind words and looking forward to our conversation. Honored to be a part of it.
I as well. And so without further ado, I'd love to just get right into it. And you've done some miraculous things in your career, which might even be an understatement, but you had to start somewhere. And a lot of our audience today here is a kid with a dream at Syracuse, like you were one day. And
Sure.
I would love if you could, take yourself back to in the same shoes as we're all in right now and tell us a little bit about your journey of how you broke through that dream you had and made it in the industry.
Yeah, Jack, this is not something that just occurred overnight. This certainly isn't something that developed by happenstance. I knew at a very young age what I wanted to do. I was 8 years old when I knew I wanted to do play-by-play. And I told my parents that that's what I wanted to do. And individually, each of them said to me, well, that's what you'll do. When you're 8 years old and you're told that you can achieve something that you're dreaming about, it's really empowering.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I didn't do very much about it from the age 8 to the age 17, it was always in the back of my mind that my parents believed in me. They thought that this was realistic, that this was attainable. And that goes a long way in your mental framework, your confidence, and your whole approach. I just went in with a very positive attitude that this was something that I could do. I didn't talk about it a whole lot. I didn't share it with everybody that I came across. If somebody asked me, what do you want to do when you grow up? I said, I want to be a sportscaster. The problem at the age of 8, Jack, is that I didn't realize when my dad told me, hey, you'll do this, but you got to get rid of that lisp. And I said, what lisp? I don't know what you're talking about. What lisp are you alluding to? And I had really no idea that I had a lazy S at the time. So my dad was a stand-up comedian, an actor, a musician. My mom was a singer and an actress. So they had tape recorders in the house. And I borrowed my father's tape recorder. And for 2 weeks, I did exercises. And by myself, I just got rid of it. I focused on it at the age of 8 and decided I was not going to have a lisp anymore. Sometimes when it rains really hard, if there's a thunderstorm, it might come back, but that's just very occasional. For the most part, it's gone, 99.999%. And that whole dream at the age of 8 came into a reality when I got to Syracuse in 1986. I applied to Syracuse because I heard it was a great communications program. A lot of sportscasters had gone there. And I just wanted to go to what was considered the best. And I wanted to be amongst people that also had an aptitude for this and an interest. And you get there, it's competitive and you have to work your way up. But I was completely committed and I immersed myself in it. And that's a big key here, immersing yourself in something that you're passionate about and finding what it is that drives you and then completely committing to it and deciding that this is what you want to do in your life and doing everything in your power to figure out a way to make it happen.
Yeah. So, I mean, you got your career started at Syracuse University, and obviously it took a lot to get there. I know you mentioned there are a lot of broadcasters that have come out of Syracuse, Bob Costas being one of them that you specifically named as a reason that you wanted to go to Syracuse in the first place. So knowing that going into Syracuse, it had to give you a little bit of drive to see the pathway of where these guys came from. The vision was there. You saw how Bob Costas took his time in Newhouse to where he
Yep.
was now. Can you tell us specifically about how your time at Syracuse prepared you for a career in the sports broadcasting industry?
Yeah, it's funny. I was going through some old boxes that I stumbled upon, and in one of the boxes was my acceptance letter from Syracuse. And reading it over in 1986, my senior year of high school, and bringing myself back to that time where I believed and visualized that all the pieces were coming into place. That's where I wanted to go. And I get this letter telling me pre-email, you get it in the mail, you're nervous, there's angst, you open it up, and it's the answer that you're looking for. But even then, there's no guarantee. Just because you get the letter and you show up freshman year, there's nothing that states, well, you're good, you're all set for life. It did require a lot of time and a lot of effort and a commitment level that I'm not even sure I was aware of until I got to Syracuse. My freshman year, I went to the college radio station Z89. There's WAER and Z89. I went to Z89. They handed me a piece of copy. I read the copy. They said, "Oh, wow, you're pretty good. We'll give you a chance." I got on the air. I started doing things right away. AER, there was a very clear system in place. You couldn't jump the line, no matter how much ability you had. You had to wait your turn. You had to be patient. You had to go through the system, which was writing first, getting your writing cleared before you even attempted to do anything on air, before you did an audition, before you did any sportscast. And that required you to show up at 5 a.m. That was, I don't know if that's a good time for you, Jack. Not a good time for me. I'm not a big morning person. So when they mentioned 5 a.m., I'm like, I'm out. I do not want to do this. I've got other stuff I want to do at school. I joined a fraternity. I had friends and building a social network. And I thought, well, I'll just take the easy road. I'll do the Z89. They like me already. And that's what I did my entire freshman year. It wasn't until first semester of my sophomore year, I was doing well at Z89. Somebody from the other radio station reached out to me, called me. I know this is a concept that seems very foreign now, but called me on a landline. And there was this guy, Kevin Martinez, and he said, "Hey, look, I know you have ability. The people here know you have ability. You really should consider coming here and going through the process of getting cleared and working at WAER." And I asked him, I said, "Does that mean I still have to wake up at 5 a.m? He said, "Yeah, that's part of the deal." I'm like, shit. I hung up the phone. I thought about it and I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And I started balancing both. And I started showing up at 5 a.m., writing casts, ended up getting cleared second semester, sophomore year. I stayed up in between my sophomore and junior year over the summer, took a couple classes and really improved on the broadcasting side. To this day, it's the most I've ever improved over a period of time. That 5-week period, I just showed marked improvement in what I was doing, my presentation, in my comfort zone. And again, it was a commitment to stay there and work on my craft and polish it. Come back for my junior year, got more responsibility at WAER radio, worked my way up to my senior year where I was calling the football games, the basketball games, lacrosse games, and things were falling into place. But there was a very clear crossroads where I could have easily said sophomore year, I'm good. I'll just stay in my lane. I'll do what I know I'm comfortable with and not rock the boat. And the decision was made to open it up a bit and probably take on more of a challenge. And it turned out to be the right decision for me at Syracuse. And it prepared me for whatever I was going to face down the road. I felt I was in a very good form for whatever the next chapter was going to be, because I had done so many things, TV, radio. I interned in Syracuse for Mike Tirico. You know, that story, Jack, again, complete happenstance. Wake up that morning, you have no idea your life is going to change. Z89, who I was working for sophomore year, they assigned me to go cover a high school football game. And a very close friend of mine, David Fleischer, and I go to cover this high school football game. We show up, and who's standing on the sideline? Mike Tirico. He's the new anchor at the CBS affiliate in Syracuse. I didn't know Mike. I'd seen him on TV a couple of times. And David, who was very outgoing and certainly not shy, said, "Hey, let's go talk to Mike Tirico." And my first reaction was, "Nah, I don't want to bother Mike Tirico. No, let him be. Let him cover the game." He's like, "No, he would love to hear from us." I was like, "Okay." So David led the way. And we walk over, and David goes right up to him. "Mike Tirico, David Fleischer, Iron Eagle, broadcasting students. How you doing?" And Mike says, "Doing great. Nice to meet you." Shook our hands. "Where are you from?" David said, "I'm from Highland Park, Illinois." I said, "I'm from Queens, New York." He goes, "I'm from Queens." I said, "Oh, what part?" He said, "Bayside." "Oh, I'm from Forest Hills." We strike up a conversation. We get deeper into it, and we hit it off. And he was thrilled that two people came up to him and recognized him and talked to him.
Mhm.
And he said at the end of the conversation, "Hey, if you want to stop by the TV station, you want to check out the facility, see what we have going on, I'd love to have you." Great. We followed up. We went to the TV station. He invited us in. He showed us the setup. He asked me if I wanted to edit a package he was working on because I had some editing skills. If I wanted to write something up as a lead into the package, I said, "Yeah." Before I knew it, I was interning for him, and so was David. And I ended up interning for him for 3 years, sophomore year, junior year, senior year. I can't tell you how much I learned from that experience. Eventually, I ended up producing a radio show for him senior year and co-hosting the show with him at times. And when he took off, hosted the show on a real radio station in Syracuse. All of that based on my friend David, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, having the guts to go up to someone and talk to him. Again, I didn't wake up that day thinking, "Oh, this might change my life, might change my career." It did. And that's just based on taking a chance and maybe going outside your comfort zone. And Michael turned out to be one of my best friends and a close confidant and someone that we're still very much in contact. I was at his wedding. He was at my wedding. And this is a legitimate relationship that formed. And then the professional side, Jack, I got to see, little did I know that he would one day be the Olympic host. I knew he was really talented and I knew that he was going to be highly successful, but he's risen to the top of the ranks because he's a gifted communicator. And I got to see all of it behind the scenes and by osmosis learned so much over that 3-year period.
And we got to watch him all summer on NBC.
Yep.
But it's, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago when we spoke, it's just crazy how, the revolving doors of life. You met Mike Tirico on this random day and
Yep.
It happened to change your life. Who knows where you'd be right now if you didn't meet Mike Tirico. Hopefully you would still be in that same spot, but Mike is someone that was instrumental in helping you build your career. And it's really cool that you met him at a random football game, and it's just how life works. It's crazy.
Jack, I'd probably be an accountant. I wouldn't even be in broadcasting. I wouldn't be here with you. My whole life would be different. Yeah, the sliding doors.
I don't know if you were an accountant, we might still invite you onto the show, but
yeah, well, I'd be an ass kicking accountant. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I'd be very strong, or a dentist. I think dentistry would have been a very good option.
You'd have the voice for an accountant too.
Thank you. Is that a compliment? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I haven't really spoken to enough accountants to know. But so there's Mike Tirico, there's Iron Eagle, but amazingly, the list, like we talked about, goes on and on of different Syracuse alums who have made big names for themselves in not only the sports industry, but specifically broadcasting. And another one that comes to mind, which we talked about earlier, is Bob Costas. And as I was doing some research for this episode, I came across a story that I had to ask you about. So I want to take it back to 1996. ESPN hires you as an announcer for the NBA draft lottery on the radio.
Yeah.
And this was a big break for you early on in your career. And I'll let you take the rest from here because you can probably tell it better than I can.
Yeah. So 1996, they were holding the NBA draft lottery in Secaucus, New Jersey, about 20 minutes from where I live. I had just completed my first season on television for the then New Jersey Nets. I had done 1 year on radio, 1994-95. I got the TV job the next year with no TV experience whatsoever. Ended up getting the job, convinced the new executive producer of the station that carried it, Sports Channel, at a breakfast in Roslyn, New York, that I was the right guy for the job. And that story in and of itself. So that's 1995. I get a call that this gentleman would like to meet with me, Pete Silverman. I had just moved to New Jersey 4 days earlier and knew nothing about the state of New Jersey and how to get around. This is pre-GPS, pre-MapQuest. You just had to know how to get places. I know that sounds insane, but that was a real thing. And I had no idea what time to leave my new place to get to Roslyn, New York. So the breakfast was for 8 a.m. and I leave my house at 5 a.m. thinking, all right, maybe there's going to be traffic at the GW Bridge. I don't know what to expect. It might take 2 hours. I can't be late for this. I pull into the parking lot of this diner in Roslyn, New York at 5:41. It took 41 minutes to get there. And now I'm sitting like, what the hell am I going to do for the next 2+ hours? So I just didn't want to fall asleep in my car. I'm cranking the radio as loud as possible. And about 5 minutes to 8, I've never met this guy. I can't search him. There's no real internet to find out what he looks like. And I walk into the diner to see Pete Silverman, who I'm meeting with. And there's a booth right in the front. And I walk over, I said, Pete, is that you? He goes, Ian? He goes, you're just getting here? I'm like, yeah, I just got here. No, I'd been there 2 hours and 25 minutes, basically waiting for the clock to roll, and met with him, had a great meeting, ended up getting the job. So a year later, I get hired by ESPN Radio to be the on-site host of the NBA Draft Lottery. The studio host is Mike Tirico. He's throwing to me, ironically, all these years later, to cover. If anyone's watched the Draft Lottery, it's all about the ping pong balls and the percentages. So that year, Philadelphia won the lottery, and Pat Croce was the president of operations. You remember they draft Allen Iverson. It was a huge deal in your home city. As I'm walking out of my townhouse to go to Sea Caucus, an IFB is an earpiece that you wear if you're on television, and it allows the producer and director to communicate with you, but it's not obtrusive. It's in your ear, and the whole point of it is that you have communication with the truck. It happened to be right on the table as I'm leaving. I'm doing radio, so in my mind, I don't need this, but something came over me. I have no idea what to this day. And I said, you know what, let me just stick it in my bag. Who knows? You never know. Drive over. It's about 20 minutes until the lottery is going to begin. It's halftime of an NBA game. Indiana, Boston, if I remember correctly. And I'm getting ready. I'm in my little studio setup, and I'm going through all the possibilities. And a guy that works at the NBA, Greg Winnick, knocks on the door, opens the door. He said, you have a minute? I said, yeah. He said, take a walk with me. And he puts his arm around me. He starts walking down the hallway. And he says, Ian, you never quite know what's going to happen in life. I'm like, all right, yeah, that's really deep. I've got 15 minutes until the lottery begins, Greg. I don't know if this is the right time for a life talk, but I'm nodding. I go, uh-huh. And he walks me into the studio. And in the studio, every representative from the NBA teams that are in the lottery are on the stage. And it's Wes Unseld of the then Washington Bullets, and Pat Croce and Elgin Baylor of the LA Clippers. And he walks me up now onto the set. And he says, Ian, Bob Costas is stuck in the Lincoln Tunnel. And it looks like we're going to need you to host the TV version of the lottery for NBC. So sit right here. Let's do a rehearsal. The next voice you're going to hear is Ricky Diamond. He's the producer. I'm like, what the hell is going on? They bring makeup in, they put makeup on me, and all of a sudden I'm thrown into this situation, and we do a run through of it, and I crush the run through. And I can tell inside the studio, everybody exhales for a moment. And again, my experience in television at this point is limited. I've done 1 year of TV play-by-play. I've done no studio work whatsoever, but I had a confidence about me that I could pull this off. I look at the time remaining in the first half. There were 51 seconds left in the first half. And they told me, Ian, stand by. We're coming to you in 3 minutes. I gather myself, I take a deep breath, I look into the camera, and I just put myself at ease. And then about a minute later, a guy runs into the studio from the parking lot and just starts yelling, Costas is in the building! Costas is in the building! And it's a whirlwind. And literally Bob Costas comes walking in with about a minute before the draft lottery. And I stand up and we cross paths on a stairwell. And Bob puts his hand on my shoulder. He says, Ian, I'm sure you would have done a fine job. And then poof, it's over. And I get ushered back to my little radio studio and I did the radio part. It all worked out well.
At least you look good for the radio part. Though.
Oh my gosh. It might have been the most handsome I've ever been on that particular day.
So did you have a relationship with Bob Costas before this all went down?
I did. Yeah, I had won the Bob Costas Award my senior year of college, which at the time at Syracuse was $1,000. You got a check from Bob for $1,000. And I got the check right after I graduated. I got home, the check was waiting for me in the mail, and I took it out of the envelope, and it's Robert Costas and his wife at the time, Randy Costas, both of their names on it, made out to me $1,000. And I went to my father, I said, should I even cash this? Like, I should maybe frame this. And he said, Ian, are you an idiot? Yes, you have to cash the check. It's $1,000. Are you a dope? So I did. I cashed the check. I got the $1,000 and who knows what I did with the money. But yes, I did get to know Bob. And Bob, when I was hosting at WFAN radio in the early 90s, Bob came in, did a guest spot with Mike and the Mad Dog. I was doing updates that day. And after his 20-minute guest spot in person, he pulled me aside, and this was probably 1993. He said, hey, give me a call later. I want to talk to you about a couple things. And I did. And he gave me some excellent advice, completely unsolicited, and things that I needed to hear at the time that did help shape some of the next steps that I took in my career of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And he didn't have to do that. He did. And since that point, we've definitely grown closer as I got older and I could relate a bit more. Bob and I have maintained a very nice friendship, and he's, to me, the gold standard. He was just so gifted and eloquent in the role that he played at NBC and on his HBO show and on his late night show. I really did try to emulate him in many ways. I grew up wanting to be Marv Albert, but as time went on, Bob definitely became someone that I really looked up to. I didn't physically look up to him. We're the same exact height. We could probably go back to back today. I might even have him by half an inch. He might say he's got me, but it's very close, Jack.
Well, you took one of my questions from later on. Who did you look up to? So now we know it was Marv Albert transitioned into Bob Costas. I'll make sure.
Yeah. I mean, like you, Jack, when you grow up in a certain city, and I don't know which sportscasters you may have listened to more than others, maybe Merrill Reese, the voice of the Philadelphia Eagles, because that was the team you loved, and those calls just stick in your brain. And a Super Bowl title, which I know you're still basking in the glow of that, the Philly special.
It'll never stop.
No, ever. No, that's a memory forever. For me, growing up in New York, Marv was doing the Knicks games. He was doing the Rangers games. He was the local sports anchor on WNBC. On weekends, he would pop up doing a boxing match on NBC, a football game on NBC, hosting baseball, eventually doing play-by-play for the NBA on NBC. So he was the guy. And when I was young and I told my parents what I wanted to do at the age of 8, I also started basically imitating Marv Albert all the time. And I think my parents were very troubled by this because when you're coming down in the morning and saying, I'd like 2 eggs over hard, toast, lightly toasted, bacon, not too crispy, freshly squeezed orange juice. And your parents are thinking, what's your issue? And they said, oh, you want to be like Marv Albert. I said, no, I want to be Marv Albert. And they said, well, let's get you some psychiatry. Let's work with a group that can help you. So yes, it was him. It started with him. And then obviously I really took a liking to some other broadcasters that definitely had an impact on me.
So obviously you're, nationally on CBS, nationally on TNT, but you're locally for the Brooklyn Nets. You've done a lot of work since, what was it, 1994 with the Brooklyn Nets. So how does it feel for you knowing that now you have kids around my age that are probably looking up to you the same way that you looked up to Marv Albert? How do you handle that, as knowing that you have people looking up to you like that you might not know yourself, but
yeah,
you have a reputation to hold on to?
Yeah, no, it's a little mind blowing. And it's a reminder that this cycle just continues. And having done the games now for 27 years, there's no doubt there's a generation of net fans that I'm the only broadcaster that they know. I've been a staple for them for a long time. And I look at that as an honor and as a responsibility. If I have young people come up to me and ask me questions about broadcasting or about the team, I try to be as inviting as possible and as open as possible and as friendly as possible. To me, that's the way that I always viewed it as a kid. I was fortunate enough to meet the people that I truly looked up to, and Marv and Bob Costas and Al Michaels and Vern Lundquist and a bunch of other broadcasters. And they were all very open, and they were amiable and likable. So to me, that doesn't take a lot of work to be nice and to be friendly. I did a thing a couple of years ago at the NBA draft, an appearance, and a guy came up to me. This was 3 years ago at the draft. And the guy says, Ian, I grew up watching you. It is an honor to meet you. And I'm looking at him, and this guy's got to be older than me. He's completely bald. He's got wrinkles on his face. And I thought to myself, I was like, well, wait a second here. I said, you mean to tell me you grew up listening to me? How is that possible? You're older than me, dude. And I realized that I started so young. I got the job when I was 25 years old. So there are a lot of people covering a wide array of ages that have heard me through the years. I started at FAN at 21 years old. I got on the air at a very young age. And there's something about that connection to radio and the memory that you have of either people doing a talk show or doing updates, and it sticks with people. So it's always quite a thrill. If someone wants to talk sports with me, I'm always open to it and excited about it.
Yeah, and you grew up as a broadcaster, really. You started at such a young age, and obviously joining the industry while you were young, you knew you had to expect that the industry was going to evolve in one way or another.
Yeah.
But it evolved greatly, and especially now with the rise of social media, the industry has changed drastically. And you being such a big brand, having such a big personal brand for yourself, you can still search up Ian Eagle on Instagram, on Twitter, and you won't find him. So can you talk a little bit about that decision that you made to not join social media, not try to grow your personal brand on these different platforms?
Yeah, Jack, it's a great question because I understand where all of this is headed. And I think if I was a little bit younger, I probably would not have a choice. I would have had to join. I would have needed to be a part of it in order to build my brand. I get it. For me, I have a lot of jobs. I'm really fortunate. I'm lucky. And I have to compartmentalize to balance all of these jobs and juggle them. The NFL that I do on Sundays on television, I do NFL on Thursdays on radio. NBA games, sometimes I'm doing as many as 3 or 4 a week. College basketball, that would require another weekend of your life. So in order to do those jobs well, you have to be all in. And that means the preparation and that means the performance. Those two worlds have to marry together. And that's true in any field, not just broadcasting, any field. You can do your preparation and then you have to deliver it. You have to perform. You have to come through in the moment. And if one of those two worlds suffers, then your overall performance suffers. If you don't have the preparation in place, you can never quite perform to your fullest because in the back of your mind, you're not completely ready. And if you even have all of the preparation done, but you're someone that can't deliver the goods when the time comes, then you're going to be judged on that. Not that you learned everything, but that you couldn't get it out there. You didn't digest it well and process it well, and then get it out to the audience. So in order for me to do that and to balance everything, I just made a very conscious decision. I can't commit to social media. And I'm not someone that can just dip my toe in the pool. I'm an all or nothing person. If I was going to do it, I was going to go all in. Now, I do have accounts. I have a burner account. I can see what's going on. I pay attention. I follow everything. I'm on top of everything. I just don't participate. So I'm a little bit of a voyeur in that way. And it's served me well. I just didn't see the upside for me in doing it. The interesting part, Jack, is if I was a little bit younger in the industry, I think my different companies that I worked for could have forced me to do it. So when CBS or the Yes Network or TNT reached out as Twitter was beginning to explode, the PR department called me and they asked me a question, which was, hey, do you want to do this? As opposed to telling me, hey, we need you to do this. I was in a high enough position to say yes or no. I had built up enough cachet and equity as a broadcaster to have the option. If I was a little bit younger and I wasn't quite as established, I think those companies may have said to me, hey, we need you to sign up for this and do it and promote. So it's a really interesting angle to this. I think you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? What's my purpose here? And do you have something to share? And you do have to be honest with yourself. Is this something that could hurt me down the road?
Yeah, and it's interesting because now you're dealing with your son, who, for those that don't know, is also a Syracuse graduate pursuing a career in sports broadcasting, is currently the voice of the Clippers on the radio, who has somewhat had to deal with that social media, and a daughter who is in the social media industry. So, you sort of got to go through that beginning of your career without necessarily having to deal with the pressure of building that brand on social media. And now you're dealing with kids that have felt that pressure a little bit.
No doubt about it. And having long chats with my son, and he's got a really good handle on it. He is on Twitter. He is on Instagram. He's not someone that posts a great deal. He's a humble guy. He doesn't like to shout from the rooftops what he's doing all the time. But there's a back and forth that comes with being on Twitter or being on Instagram, and that's the public. Mm-hmm. And they have access to you.
Yeah.
Jack, I don't know if you've noticed this, but some fans can be very angry when their team's not playing well. And they can start blaming someone that may have no role whatsoever in the outcome of a game, but just because so-and-so is the announcer on games that your team seems to lose a lot, you begin to get the blame from people. So yes, if I was on and I was doing a Pittsburgh Steelers game and they're down 21-6 in the fourth quarter, and they've lost the last 3 games that I happen to work, there's a very good chance that I would get a message from someone telling me I was an ass clown. Like that would happen frequently.
You're lucky the Eagles don't play on CBS often.
Exactly. So I get it. My son gets it. Certainly my daughter understands. She's been highly involved in social media. She's accumulated nearly 170,000 followers on TikTok with a fashion account, another 70,000 on Instagram, and Snapchat is going up in that department. And she's actually making a living doing this. So it would be hypocritical of me to completely veto and kibosh what social media means without the full context and understanding that I see it every day, the benefits that can come from being successful on social media. So I certainly am not telling anyone, hey, just turn off that part of your life. If it's important to what you do and it's something that can be an asset to you, you got to go and pursue it. For my son, he has kind of dipped his toe in the pool, but not fully immersed. For me, I made the decision to sit back and watch a lot of the madness unfold in front of me.
Yeah, and as I told you a couple of weeks ago, I got the opportunity to speak with Noah after he was a moderator for an SSBC episode back in the spring. And the reason I reached out to him is because I was so amazed at how prepared he was for this episode. And you said that a lot of it was, the way you raised him, that you come in prepared, and like the way that you prepare is the way that you execute. So he actually said himself, yeah, I prepare more for this type of stuff more than I study for an exam. But don't tell him I told you that. But I have taken that with me, as I'm moderating these episodes now and getting more experience. It's really interesting to think that the preparation that you put into it is the way that it'll turn out. And even before, how I brought up a couple stories, I did my research on you. I've done my research in the past, and those words from Noah might have not seemed like much from him, but it had a big impact on me. And I think it's really cool to kind of be able to see the preparation that goes into, you're broadcasting on NFL every week. People aren't exactly thinking about the preparation that goes into it.
And Jack, the key is to make it seamless, is to make the viewer feel like they're learning something without hitting them over the head with it. And I think the top broadcasters find a way to make it conversational, to weave it in. And before you know it, you just picked up something as a viewer or a listener that you didn't know before the game started. The positive of the internet is that there's so much more information out there than there had ever been. I used to rely on media guides and a preview magazine here or there, and that was really it. That was the entire package of information that you had at your disposal. Now you have so much more, but that means the fans have so much more. You, as a huge Eagles fan, have the same access as I do for what's out there: newspapers, websites, you name it. So now, as a broadcaster, your challenge is to dig deeper and to find something that has been completely uncovered. And a lot of that comes from your conversations with players and coaches, where you can make it personal and you can take the broadcast in a direction that others may not be able to take because they just don't have access to that information. For me, the preparation part, and this is true in every walk of life, every walk of business, if you're serious about what you do, then you have to take it seriously. And to sleepwalk through a presentation, or in your case, preparing for one of these interviews, yeah, it would have been easy. You could have thrown out a couple topics to me, but it's a lot more interesting if you've done your homework and you have a working knowledge of the subject matter. And I think it probably puts you more at ease because you're not grasping and tossing things out there, hoping they connect. And the same holds true for my job. Totally. If I go in with just half the knowledge and we get into an important part of the game, and now I don't remember that the Jets had an overtime loss in week 2, and now they're going to overtime in week 14, and I'm making it up as I go along, it would have taken 20 seconds to do the research, looking at their results for the season and seeing the last time they played an overtime game. It seems simple to me. It shouldn't be much harder than that. Do your homework, come prepared. The big key that I learned, and it took me probably 3 or 4 years of NBA, 3 or 4 years NFL, when to use the information. I think early on, I just had this idea that I was going to overwhelm the audience with minutia and show you how much work I put into it. And probably year 3 or 4, when I watched back my stuff, I realized it's too much. I'm dominating with stuff that isn't connecting and isn't resonating. And I quickly realized there's a time and place. And if you don't get something in, it's okay.
Not the end of the
Just
world.
because you did the work doesn't mean it has to show up on the air. In fact, probably only 10 to 15% of the work that I do actually makes air. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be cool with the idea at the end of the broadcast, I used what I needed to use and the audience got what they needed out of it. Don't force feed. And that's true again in any type of business. You don't have to dazzle and wow people with more information. Just pick the right information that pertains to what your subject matter is.
And so do you come into these specific games with just a full list of random facts and stats? Like
I do.
If you're watching a Patriots game, like back in the past, at least Tom Brady has thrown 3 touchdowns in the last 3 quarters. Like just
I
like
do. I do a lot of random stuff, things that would be specific to a moment or a situation that pops up. And if you're just jamming them in there because you want to have something to say, they don't really have much of an impact. But I come with a lot more material than I actually need, with the idea that if the game goes south, I've got it. It's in my back pocket. It's there. It's available. And it might live on. I might have the Patriots in 3 weeks, and some of that information might live for that game. And maybe I use that one nugget from 3 weeks earlier that didn't make air. I use it 3 weeks later because the exact situation popped up. You have to almost play a game of concentration in your own brain of what makes sense in the moment. And these are split-second decisions. You don't have time to think about it. You can't go back. You can't edit it. It's happening in the moment. Yeah. And you've got to be sharp, and you've got to be in tune, and you've got to be laser focused in what you're doing. If a game is going on in front of me, that's all I'm thinking about for those 3 hours. I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm locked in on that game and that situation so that I can deliver what my job is asking me to do. And that's be the conduit from the game to the audience.
So I have to take it back for a second to Tom Brady, because a story that was released on Sports Illustrated a week ago shares a really funny story of your relationship with Tom. And I did not know that people actually drink Pepsi at 9 a.m., but apparently Iron Eagle does. So can you tell us a little bit of behind the scenes of this story that came out of you and Tom Brady and your relationship?
Yeah, this was probably 2017, somewhere in that area. And I mentioned earlier, my schedule gets a little crazy when the NFL and NBA seasons cross. So I had a Friday night Nets game. And in order to make our Saturday morning meeting at Foxborough, I had to take a 7 a.m. flight, which means you got to be at the airport at 6 a.m., which means you got to be up at 5:30 a.m. I didn't get home from the net game until 11:15 p.m. You don't fall asleep till midnight, 12:30. You're up at 5:15, 5:30, get on a plane, land, get in a car, get to Foxborough, and I'm a mess. I'm a mess. Yeah, I don't know how many hours you need to sleep in order to function. I need 6 to get by. I can do my job. I can go through life. If I get 6 hours of sleep, I'd rather have 7. Man, 8 hours, forget it.
Yeah.
I'm like an Adonis with 8 hours, but I can get by with 6. So that day I had like 4.5 at best. I get to the facility. We're waiting on Tom Brady to walk in. We're sitting at this table. The PR staff of the Patriots had brought Dunkin' Donuts in, and I had not had dinner the night before either. So, you're talking about, I hadn't eaten probably since 2 p.m. the previous day. I don't drink coffee. never had a sip of coffee in my life. I show up for this meeting, and at about 8:55, I go into the other room. There's a little press area, and they have a fridge. I open it up, and it's a liter of Pepsi, like the large Pepsis. And I'm like, screw it. I just take the whole Pepsi, I bring it into the other room, I put it on the table, and then I take a donut out, chocolate frosted, and I take a bite out of that donut. And then I take a second bite of that donut. I take a swig of Pepsi right out of the bottle. Dan Fouts, who I'm working with, is like looking at me in amazement. It's like, how is this possible? How is it that you have the palate of an 11-year-old, which I do. Like I would eat chicken fingers every day if that was accepted by society.
Drinking right out of the liter?
Yes. Yes, right out of it.
Wow.
So again, I'm not of sound mind. And I take the third bite of the donut, and in comes Tom Brady. And Tom looks immaculate. You know, his hair is perfect. This is pre-walkthrough. And he walks in, he's just got a big smile on his face. And I'm literally like mid-bite of the donut. And he just comes in and he goes right for it. He's like, hey, Ian, what do you got going on there? Exactly. And I'm like, oh. And Dan starts laughing. Evan Washburn, our sideline reporter, is laughing. Producer director's laughing. I was like, you've never had a Pepsi and a donut for breakfast? He's like, no. In fact, I go to a healthy donut shop. It's right up the road. I can tell you where it is next time. I was like, why would I possibly eat a healthy donut? That makes no sense.
How is it healthy?
And I said, I'm a little bit of a wise ass myself. I was like, you want some Pepsi? I mean, I just taken a swig from the bottle. I was like, I could pour you some. He's like, no, I've never had soda. And I'm like, you what? Never had soda. So, he crushes me basically. He's like, well, that's not a really good combo, if we're going to be honest. So we have them 3 weeks later on a road game, and he comes in for the meeting, and the first thing is like, you got that Pepsi soda combo going, that soda donut? I'm like, no. And that lived the next year, same thing. He just basically crushed me for 2 more years following that, and always had a laugh at it. I don't make a habit of having Pepsi at 9 a.m. It just felt appropriate that particular day.
It's good to know Tom Brady is a good memory, so he's still staying up thinking about that Super Bowl against the Eagles, hopefully.
Yeah, I didn't bring that up at the time.
But yeah, I mean, not only were you off of almost 20 hours of not eating, but the first thing you were consuming was Pepsi. So
no, let me tell you, Jack, it was glorious.
You were talking to the healthiest man in the world too.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I just had the one person that could not relate walk into the room at the exact moment as I was consuming both a Pepsi and a donut. But don't knock it till you try it. I mean, I felt fine afterwards, more than fine.
So I know we could probably go on with funny stories like that for hours, just with all the people that you've had the opportunity to meet in sports. But I want to get a little bit more into your personal career. I want to go through a little quick fire round, just questions that I want to ask you that you can go deeper into the answer if you like, but it's just going to be straightforward questions.
Okay.
So the first one is, what has been your favorite sport to call in your career?
Favorite sport to call? That's hard to pick. I'm a huge football guy, but I'm also a huge NBA guy. And then I'll tell you that March Madness is as enjoyable and as challenging and as fun as it gets. So you can't make me pick. I'm not going to select one over the other. I've been really lucky. I've called boxing. I've called track and field. I've called tennis. I've called golf. I've called volleyball. One of the assignments that I got years ago was the NFL cheerleader playoffs on NFL Network. I kept turning it down. They kept upping the money. And I finally said, yes, that's on my resume somewhere. I try to give a bit of my personality to every broadcast that I do, not just a straightforward broadcast, but someone that views life with a sense of humor and sees the lighter side of things. When it's time to get serious, I get serious. But if there's a moment to have some levity, I'll bring that to the table as well. So I try to have the most fun as possible with every event that I call and whoever I work with as well. I try to do my best to get the best out of them in our partnership.
I'm going to have to find the footage of you broadcasting this NFL cheerleader playoff.
I wish you luck. If you can find it, send it to me.
I will do. And then, so you said that you try to bring the best out of all your broadcasting partners. This is going to be a tough one. Which partner has been your favorite to work with over the years?
Impossible to answer, but look, Bill Raftery is someone I've worked with now for 27 years. And my first television partner with the Nets, I've done maybe 1,000 games with them. I don't even know. I couldn't even add up all the numbers of games that we did together. We were doing so many games together with the Nets, and then with CBS, 1,000 might be a little high, but we've done a lot of broadcasts together. He's also one of my closest friends, and he's someone that would stand out as a partnership that was truly special from the beginning. From the first day I worked with him, literally the first time I went on the air with him, I was having a ball. But I've been really fortunate. I've worked with, I think, 142 different partners over the course of my career. And I'd be hard pressed to say a bad word about any of them. I try to enjoy who I work with. I'm a conversationalist by nature. I want to make them look good. If they look good, we look good. That's how I've always viewed it. And I want them to be comfortable. And that's my goal every time I go on the air, is to make the person next to me comfortable so they can do their best work. They don't have to worry about certain aspects of the job. I tell them, I've got that covered. You're good. Do your thing. And you can't be the same with everyone. You have to be malleable. And this is true in life in general. You've got to be flexible and realize that not everybody brings the same thing to the table. So I might have a partner that's got a great sense of humor, and I'll work with them on that. But I might work with a different partner that doesn't really bring the funny. So what am I going to do? Crack jokes the entire broadcast and force that out of them? No, I'll pick and choose my spots, but I won't expect them to keep up with me. I might have someone who I work with who is tremendous at X's and O's and loves the strategy of the game. I might work with someone else. That's not their thing. They like storylines. They like bios. They like looking at the game from a different angle. I might work with someone that is highly controversial and highly opinionated, and I give them the runway to do that. I might work with a person that doesn't have strong opinions, and I can't force them to be something that they're not. So I think there has to be an understanding that you're the traffic cop. You have to be open and have to be very flexible in that situation to make sure you get the best out of your partner.
And do you find yourself studying the partner as much as you're studying the game before?
Very much so. That, to me, that's the secret to the broadcast, is having an understanding of the buttons that you can push, where you can go with your partner, and where you can't go. And that's based on trust. That's based on commonality, finding common ground. I'm not best friends with every person that I work with, but I do put them in the best position to succeed. I believe that. And I often will say it to them before we start in a partnership. Hey, this is going to be us having a conversation. That's it. That's how you have to view it. It's not me interviewing you. And I don't want that. When I watch a broadcast, I don't particularly like that. Question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. That's not what a game broadcast should be. You want to feel as if you're sitting on a couch with two friends and you're listening in and maybe reacting to what they say, but it shouldn't be a one-sided conversation. It's got to be shared. You've got to be collaborative. You've got to be a really good teammate if you want to be excellent at this job. So early on, I recognized that, and I just made it my business to be a supreme partner and to try to get the best out of who I'm working with.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I find it really fascinating that you take pride in your ability to show your chemistry with your partners. And I do think that it enhances the entertainment of the broadcast. So The next question I want to ask you, what is your favorite moment from your play calling career? I know you've had some big ones.
Yeah, I've been in a really advantageous position to call a lot of different things. And I also had the good fortune of calling really big events on what was called a world feed that would go to countries outside the United States, English speaking countries that were not allowed to pick up the US broadcast. So United Kingdom and Indonesia, Philippines, Israel, different parts of the world, our broadcast would go there. NCAA championship games, NBA final games, things of that nature. So yeah, I called a bunch of Chicago Bulls NBA championship performances, including Michael Jordan's shot over Brian Russell against the Utah Jazz. That was on a world feed. I was in Salt Lake City, and it turned out to be the last shot of Jordan's Bulls career and the 6th championship. And anyone that watched The Last Dance last summer saw how it all played out, and it brought back a flood of memories of doing those games. And just being in that position was so beyond what you imagine when you get into broadcasting. The goal is to call big events. Same for the NCAA championship, a Butler Duke game where Gordon Hayward had a chance to win it at the buzzer, half court shot, it rims out. And to me, it would have gone down as not just the greatest upset, but maybe the greatest ending in sports history. If a 40-footer goes down in Hayward's hometown, the home city where Butler plays, against Duke, in front of, it might have been 50,000 people inside that venue
that year too.
Unbelievable. That may have gone down as the greatest sports ending of all time. Truly, it rims out. Duke wins the championship. The game was awesome, and the ebbs and flow of that game, that's what prepares you as a broadcaster for future events when you're in those situations again. I've had, a bunch of crazy endings in the NFL. This past year with Arizona, Murray Magic at the end of the game.
That's
a couple of years ago. Yeah, Miami, New England, lateral heard around the world with the Miami Miracle and Kenyon Drake getting the angle on Rob Gronkowski. Wild endings, wild games, incredible performances, Tom Brady. And then just from a net standpoint, watching the team go to back-to-back finals in my career, calling a bunch of those games as well. That was pretty special. When you have a connection with the local team, you feel a different energy because you know the players, you know the coaches, you know them on a level that you're not going to experience when you're calling national games. You're getting a 10-minute interview with Tom Brady. I've gotten to know him through the years, but I don't know everything about him. I don't know what makes him tick and vice versa. Peyton Manning, my first NFL game for CBS was Peyton Manning's first game as a pro for Indianapolis. Colts and the Dolphins, September of 1998. And Peyton walks into the meeting room. This is my first meeting with an NFL player. And he walks in, and he's not played a down in the NFL yet. And I'm sitting there, and I stand up, and he walks over, shakes my hand. He said, "Ian, great to meet you, Peyton Manning." So he knows my name. He says his name. I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I know who you are. You're Peyton Manning." And I'm blown away. We ask him questions. I'm blown away by his knowledge. I'm blown away by how he carries himself. I probably talked to him over the course of his career 30 times. And every time, walk in, handshake, look you right in the eye. "Ian, how you doing?" That just shows a different level. That's not the norm. Little did I know, again, that was the first NFL player that I ever had a production meeting with. So I just thought, oh, they're all going to be like that. You realize, no, this guy was just damn special.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you form good relationships with Brooklyn Nets players as well, being there on almost a nightly basis.
Tougher this year, Jack, with the pandemic we had no access to players. So I've now gone a full NFL season, a full NBA season, and a full college basketball season, not being in the same room as a player, a coach, a GM, nothing, no interaction. The only interaction that we've had has been just like this via Zoom. And it has an effect. You still do the games, you still call the games, but there's a little bit of a detachment because you're not around it and you don't feel the same connection that you normally would feel. So let's see how things go. We have the NFL season coming up. I've heard rumors that we might go into facilities and go to practice and meet with players, but then there have been rumors that it might still be on Zoom. It's up in the air. It's always changing and you have to change with it.
Yeah, I'm praying for your sake, for the fans' sake, for everyone's sake, that it's been somewhat as close to back to normal as it can be at NFL games this season. I could probably go on for the next 2 hours asking you questions, but we are unfortunately past 6 o'clock now, out of time, and I really, really enjoy this, and I appreciate you giving us your time today. I'm sure our audience learned a lot, got a lot of laughs, and we have a message here from Drew Bartlestein. Ian, you were the best. And Ian, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you today. And it's honestly gonna be difficult for me to watch Eagles games on Fox and not switch over to CBS this season and check out how you're doing over there. But
Jack, thanks, bud. I really appreciate it. If I could impart one last thing to anyone that's still on, this isn't just true in broadcasting. This is true in all parts of life and business. The goal really should be, at some point it hits you and you realize it, just try to put good into the world. We all have that choice on a daily basis. And to me, that's the only way to do it. Don't be an asshole. Be a good person, treat people with respect. And often you're going to get respect back. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be competitive and you shouldn't have drive and determination. All of those things are incredibly important, but you can still do it with a positive energy and a vibe that when you walk in a room, people are happy to see you. Mm-hmm. And that goes a long way. And ultimately, when you hit a certain point in life and you realize what's important and priorities, how people view you and how you carry yourself is a really important component. So if that's one thing I can impart, that's something that I try to live up to on a daily basis. And no matter how much success you have, it shouldn't change that. Who you are, the core of who you are, and what you stand for, and what your moral fiber is. I'm not a deeply religious person by any stretch, but I am someone that believes in karma and what you're putting out there, and you're going to get it back in some form.
Couldn't have said it better. The wise words of Ian Eagle: be a good person. Thank you to everyone for tuning in today. Thank you, Ian, for being here, and we will see you for episode 8 next week.
Sounds good. See you, Jack.
Thank you. See ya.